Well, I am delighted to do a little video on the Christian Research Journal. It is a magazine that I've said many times on the broadcast, the podcast, through our digital media platforms, a magazine that no Christian home should be without. You can subscribe in a safe, secure fashion on the web at equip.org. The reason, though, that I'm highlighting the Christian Research Journal is that the current edition of the journal has an article in it that I was captivated by. The article is titled Street Epistemology, the New Atheist Evangelism. And this particular article is very, very insightful. And I'm going to explain to you why. The first thing I probably should tell you is what street epistemology is. You know, it's kind of a big title. Epistemology, of course, is the study of knowledge. And the epistemological question is, how do you know? And this is the very question that atheist evangelists are asking theists and Christians, and that with a GoPro video recorder in hand. In other words, they're recording the answer of the theist or the Christian. The idea is to capture the moment, then circulate the video footage through social media platforms, and in doing so, they have the stated goal of eradicating the virus of faith. It's a virus. It's a disease. You gotta get rid of it. We gotta eradicate it, and this is one of the ways they think they can do it. Well, quite frankly, street epistemology constitutes a service to contemporary Christianity. Because as Travis Dickinson points out in the Christian Research Journal, the lesson is that we need to take our faith seriously. And instead, it seems that Christians have increasingly become intellectually lazy and apathetic about their faith. So we need to turn the tables here for a moment, because it turns out that the atheist evangelists themselves are virtually blind to the meaning of faith. Peter Volhasian, one of the chief popularizers of street epistemology, goes so far as to mystifying faith as, I think he puts it this way, pretending to know things that you don't know and having belief without evidence. Predictably, what he blindly parrots is people like Richard Dawkins, who infamously defined faith as the great excuse to evade the need to think and evaluate evidence. Or, I think Mark Twain was a little more clever. He said, faith is believing what you know ain't so. Well, of one thing we can be certain, Volhasian is dead wrong to suppose that faith is belief without evidence. Quite obviously, faith is not belief without evidence. But more accurately, it is a state of trust grounded in reason and in evidence. When Volhasian sits down in a chair, or when he flies in an airplane, he does not do so absent reason, nor on the basis of blind faith. He does so on the basis of reason and empirical evidence. And that is precisely the case for Christians. We do not believe what we know ain't so. Rather, we believe on the basis of common sense and rationality and evidence. The atheist looks at something, well, as seemingly simple as a feather, and blindly believes that in the course of merely millions of years, that feather emerged as a result of natural selection. The Christian looks at that same feather and does not have the temerity, the reckless boldness to take that great a leap of faith. Why? Because as the science of statistical probability makes plain, chance operating in concert with undirected processes could no more produce a finch's feather than it could produce so much as one of its barbules. In other words, the meticulous engineering of feathers hardly squares with blind atheistic materialism. And that's just one example. But if you take a closer look with respect to a feather, you're going to notice that the central shaft of a feather has a series of barbs projecting from each side at right angles. Then it has rows of smaller, well, they're called, I think, barbules that protrude from both sides of the barbs. And then you have tiny hooks that project downward from one side of the barbules and interlock with ridges on the opposite side of adjacent barbules. I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but let me simply add that there may be as many as 1 million barbules cooperating to bind the barbs into a complete feather impervious to air penetration. It's pretty incredible. Moreover, the positioning of the feathers is controlled by a complex network of tendons that allow the feathers to open like the slats of a blind when the wing is raised, and as a result, wind resistance is greatly reduced on the upstroke, and on the downstroke, the feathers close, providing the necessary resistance for efficient flight. Well, the point of all of this is simply to say that atheist evangelists seeking to make Christians look foolish foolishly contend that in the course of merely millions of years, reptilian scales become more and more like feathers until one day the perfect feather emerged. And this on the basis of blind faith rather than reason. Plainly put, to attribute the intricacies of a mere feather to unguided, purposeless processes is to fly from knowledge to anti-knowledge. A Christian could not so much as imagine doing such a thing. Instead, we trust, we put our faith in what we have good reason to believe is true. In the case of feathers, we trust that design presupposes a designer. Contrarily, the materialists manifest not only blind but bigoted faith. Despite clear evidence of design, they exclude the possibility of a designer without so much as taking a closer look. Well, perhaps it is the theist who ought to engage in street epistemology, and that with a GoPro video recorder in hand. In the meantime, take a look at Travis Dickinson's article, Street Epistemology, the new atheist evangelism in CRI's award-winning magazine, the Christian Research Journal. It's an absolutely incredible article, and as I have talked about many times when I talk about the journal, I mean, the graphics that go along with the article are stunning, to say the least. We meld great content with great visual production. So subscribe to the Christian Research Journal. You can do that in a safe, secure fashion on the web at equip.org.